Well, hello,
All right.
everyone. Welcome to the Catching Up with Cope podcast. Cope is the Coalition of Parents in Esports, a 501c3 nonprofit organization that provides programs and scholarships to empower youth, parents, and educators to utilize gaming to build confidence, curiosity, community, and careers. I'm your host, Friday, and today I am here with Justin Stefanovic, the Senior Vice President of Partnerships at Misfits Gaming Group. Justin, thank you for being
Hi.
here.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Um,
Happy to be
s-
here.
so literally so glad to be talking to you. And I kind of want to just, you know, before we really get into all of it, if you can start really by talking about Misfits Gaming Group and what it is that you all do.
Sure. So Misfits Gaming Group started out as a traditional esports org where we competed in competitive gaming, where we had teams, players that were under the Misfits umbrella that played in either one-off tournament style games or leagues, all competing under this one umbrella of Misfits. We did that for a while and got pretty big into some big leagues, and recently have more so focused on the media and entertainment side within the whole gaming ecosphere, if you will, and selling off a lot of our esports team assets that we had rights to. So, yeah, now we really focus on events, content creators, and game development that all sits underneath our Misfits umbrella still.
Yeah, that's awesome. Can I ask what that transition was like for Misfits and
Sure.
why you made that switch in general?
Yeah, I mean, for those that don't know, like owning esports teams and managing those teams costs a lot of money. The teams themselves are paying for, infrastructure for the teams, player salaries, travel, coaching. On top of that, a lot of times when you're working with players, like you want to try to generate revenue and sponsorships off of the assets that you have. So that requires social teams, content teams, editors, videographers, all this stuff, and it just gets very expensive. And the return on investments, for the most part, pretty low. If you look at, I mean, you can look it up, but most esports teams aren't generating a profit, right? So for us, we were like, okay, well, if you think about gaming, the gaming ecosphere is very healthy, right? There's tons of people that play video games. So how do we speak to the people that might watch games casually, probably play more games than they watch, play with their friends, maybe they'll check out an event. Are those events necessarily competitive gaming in nature? Are they more just like gaming culture? When we really looked into it, we were just like, there's ecosystem of esports, although flashy and splashy and great, and you want to see it succeed, it's just such a minor blip in the world of gaming, right? So we always think like more people play Call of Duty than watch Call of Duty League. More people play Overwatch than watch the league itself. So like how are we impacting those people that play it that maybe aren't necessarily like the fans of the esport? So that led us to looking into more ways to work with creators to expand into those communities. We looked at games that maybe were fun, had a big audience, but might not be competitive in nature, more casual, like Minecraft. And I'd say like Minecraft was really our first foray into this experiment of how can we work in a game community, making content, making fun stuff. Doesn't necessarily have to be playing the game itself, but how can we tap into those eyeballs? We did that pretty successfully and just kind of expanded on creator relationships with those communities and working closer. And now we have shows that are from creators that people go and watch that they don't actually play any games, but they're all, gamers at heart and play games, got famous on Twitch for playing games. And there's development studios that we own with influencers that we're making games to put out for their fans to play. So it took a couple years. So I would say like maybe 3 years in the works where we started to like slowly transition into like less of a competitive esports org and more into this like entertainment media focused entity that we are now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's great. And something that I kind of wanted to touch on that you had said is that I think there's an importance of understanding the different audiences that are in gaming and esports, and I'm not sure if this is your experience, but maybe have you ever seen brands and companies not really understanding the difference between like what these different audiences are in gaming, because like
Yeah.
some people love the games but don't really care about the esports, but then some people love watching and then don't even touch the games. Do you feel like that's a common, or do you see that play out a lot with brands?
Yeah, I think it all comes down to like, I think in every instance we've noticed like esports fans are they're very hardcore fans. They're people that are
Yeah.
tuning into following players or following the news, usually know about like bugs and what's going on in the game and why the game might be bad and not play. They're like super into the esport that they love. Then you have casual fans who want to buy the new release and play it, and they're down to play because their friends are playing, and like, oh, so and so is playing this, let me go download it or play it. Buy it. And there's a lot more of those people that play for fun than play to like, level rank and want to become the best, even from just a playing, not even watching standpoint.
Hmm.
And then even fewer people watch esports than play that want to play competitively and level up and go up the ladder and stuff like that. So yeah, I think brands sometimes think of gaming like we'll talk to brands sometimes like, oh, we're gonna hit gamers, we're gonna do gaming program. Like, well, who do you want to hit? And they're like, oh, well, we're just gonna put our stuff wherever, Twitch or buy ads. And I'm just like, okay, well, or they might say like, oh, we're trying to hit a certain type of audience, and they're like, so we're just gonna reach like, what's the biggest game out right now? I'm like, well, like, yeah, at the time it might have been Fortnite, right? So a while back, Fortnite was really popular. They had their Fortnite World Cup in New York, and a lot of brands were like, "Oh, we want to hit these types of gamers. We want to hit a certain audience." And we had to explain to them like, Fortnite, although really big and although really fun and cool, like the majority of people that play Fortnite are very different than the ones you see on streaming that are playing and streaming.
Yeah,
Everyone knew that
absolutely.
like a lot of kids are playing Fortnite. They're not streaming themselves. So all the brand sees is, a ninja or someone big playing it. But then for every ninja, there's like 1,000 kids that play
Absolutely.
it.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
like what type of audience are you trying to speak to is what we're trying to get them to understand. And then also like from game to game, everything's different. So you have obviously, different influencers that have different audiences. The games have different audiences. So like we just try to explain to brands like you gotta keep all that into consideration. It's not like a blanketed like one thing fits everything. So
Yeah. No.
yes,
Absolutely. I think that's very smart. And so, I'm glad that that's being talked about, because I don't think a lot of, like, you just said, a lot of brands realize that. And so someone to kind of be able to, really help them navigate what this industry, encompasses, and the different areas. And so I kind of want to get into a little bit as well your role within Misfits
Mhm.
Gaming Group, and, how you originally got involved.
Sure. So my role is pretty straightforward. Like I help brands or partners that want to work with us and reach our audiences and work with them to monetize those eyeballs for Misfits. So whether that's your typical sponsorship or partnership or an ad campaign or an influencer deal, like where my job is to bring those dollars in. Um, how I started doing that. So I've been in gaming advertising for a long time. So before Misfits, I was at a company. We specialized in digital video. Turns out we built a video player that happened to work in the clients of a lot of game publishers. Luckily, we didn't know about it. It wasn't like that's what we set out to do, but it just so happened when everyone was building um, websites and kind of website extensions in Flash, we built an HTML5 player a long time ago. And just so happened it worked in Steam and the Mojang client and Sony Online Entertainment and a bunch of different like BattleNet stuff. So we went to all the publishers and said, "Hey, we'll give you guys this technology for free, so you can run ads or run videos, your own content in your clients. We just want to represent the ad space around it." And we were able to do that pretty successfully and get a large chunk of publishers to give us their inventory, which I sold for 10 plus years. So then eventually, our CEO Ben was looking for someone to manage sort of our partnerships. And I got to a point where the company I was at was doing great. It got sort of like more, this is pick A, B, or C. This is what we do, and I really enjoyed kind of problem solving and coming up with fun ideas and solutions for clients and brands, like how to work in this space. So it just got to a point where I felt like I could be better utilized, kind of going back to more of a startup,
Mm.
and yeah, working with brands that way. So that's what got me here.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's awesome. And especially that you've had such an extensive experience with gaming and esports previously. Can I ask like what sorts of games you grew up playing or what sorts of games that,
Oh
pique your
man,
interest
so
now?
I'm really old, so like my games that I played, like don't like. There's not a lot of those out there these days. I mean, yeah, so one of my favorite games is like Revenge of Shinobi. It's an old like side scroller game, but just takes place like a ninja and he's
Yeah.
revenging the death of his whomever. And a lot of like the old Ninja Turtles arcade or Battletoads. Played a lot of Legend of Zelda, all the Mario's, Altered Beast, just whatever. I mean, I had a lot of games, but they're all just. It's like I grew up in an era where it was like Nintendo and Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis and those types of games. Our technology back then wasn't as good as it is now, where
Yeah.
games look great on the phone compared to what they were like back then. But just lots of different games. I always loved games. I played a lot of original Warcraft growing up. Love RTS type games. Played a lot of StarCraft. So yeah, I mean, I was fortunate enough to be able to get games when I was younger. It got me. I always said like I'd love to work in sports or video games. So when esports rolled around eventually, when I got here, to me that was like
Yeah.
I was
Like
like, this is crazy. I get to
perfect.
do this. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
No, that's awesome. And that kind of just like brings me up to this idea of people who work in this space having, grown up playing video games or having a love for it. And I think that's always important because I think a lot of times in this space, there's also people who, they have to get jobs. They have to work somewhere, and things like that. But I always think that that idea of being centered around, you know, the gamers and the people who, enjoy playing video games and that stems from the culture of the company of people who are into video games already, and so it's like they're not trying to fake something or, they have
right.
that sort of background knowledge. And I one of the taglines that I had seen on your site was like we are powered by play. And
Yeah.
I love that. And can you like speak a bit more to that concept and really
Sure.
what that means for you all?
For Misfits, for us, it was like what encompassed like bit of everything that we were doing. And at the crux of it, we want to create memorable moments or experiences for fans to like leave and say, wow, like whether if it's a game we make or an event they go see with one of our creators of a show they put on or a piece of content or whatever it might be, we want them to be like, wow, like that was fun and remember that long
Mhm.
past going to see it.
Yeah.
And to us, that was always centered back to like having fun. And for us, like having fun is synonymous with play. And whether that play is like playing games or you play with your friends and you want to play online or you want to go watch an event with your friends and get out of the house and be playful that way, like to us, that was kind of the crux of everything. So like everything that we do at this point, does it fall back to like, can we create a memorable experience with it? And to us, that's powered by play. So
Yeah, absolutely. Are there any like partnerships or activations that you've been I mean, I'm not telling you to pick one, but is there like,
let's like
some of
pick
them
one.
that have really like stuck out to you and you've been really excited to see hit the space?
There's a ton. I mean, I think I think like it's hard for me to pick one. And we've worked on a lot of campaigns over the years. We have some great partners now. I love when brands first get into gaming. I know. Listen, we have a very broad industry. The term
Mhm.
gaming is is I think at this point like everyone and anyone plays a video game for the most part, whether if it's like casual. Like my wife doesn't consider herself a gamer; she plays Sudoku every night. So like I'm like Mel, you play more video games than I do at this point,
Yeah.
and she's playing Sudoku literally almost every night she plays. So like everyone's playing at some point, and it's really just like you know when brands say, okay, we want to start tapping into that audience. Like I always get excited to like work with brands and like kind of hold their hand and be like, look, we know this is a very vast, broad, different sort of atmosphere than you're used to. And fortunately, at our company, we have a lot of people that have been in gaming, like myself and our teams, and all sorts of people that help out. Kind of understanding the culture, like I think it's you have to understand like gamers are a very unique, savvy consumer. They're very boisterous. They're very loyal to, but like at the same time, like you don't want to piss them off because they're also very boisterous. So like
Yeah, for
they
sure.
can really turn on you, which I'm sure everyone knows or has kind of witnessed. So it's just fun for me when I get a chance to like really work with a new brand. One in mind is we did a program last year. Our one of our team members, Nicole, she brought in this great program with Mars Pet Care, and they were
Mhm.
leaning in. They're like, "Hey, we know like gamers like pets, and like we really lean in. Like, well, tons of gamers have cats. It actually skews gamers have cats more than the average U.S. household. So we
Interesting. I never knew that.
yes. So we did this program with cats and Tubnet, one of the Minecraft servers that we had with
Yeah.
Tubbo, and we did like a little cat mini game where like cats got on the loose, and you had like find and round try to like if they ever like herding cats essentially, right?
Yeah,
So
no, for
just a
sure.
fun little time saver where like, and then in the game you got little cosmetics that like spawned cats to follow you around in game, and then we built like a cat cafe and stuff to your character can go in and play and hang out with cats. So like that was really cool to me because that's a brand that like pet food and gaming, like why would you put those two together? But when you look and see the audience you're reaching and how much they love cats and interact with cats, and then like they thought it was such a great program. So, we still talk with them today about stuff that we're doing with them. But that was one that was so different and like I think worked out really well. We had like a giant cat costume come to Austin shows Name Your Price.
Mhm.
That was walking around the audience and stuff, which was funny and bizarre. And they
Yeah.
really leaned into like, what are some fun things we can do, which is great. So anytime I think you have a brand that says, like, what should we do? We trust you to like help guide us through it. I think goes really well. Same thing when you have brands trust influencers. If they want to work with that talent, I think you kind of have to let the talent be who you were interested in the first place. I think sometimes you
Mhm.
put too many rules and scripts and how things have to be, you kind of lose that special magic that the talent brings to their community. So anytime brands let us, kind of be true to who we are, I think it just goes really well.
No, I think that's awesome, and especially that it's, brands that I probably would never have guessed would wanna, come into the space and kind of link up with gaming in that way, and I think that's really cool. Kind of going off of that, did you this sort of just struck me when when we were talking about different sorts of brands. All of a sudden pet food, like cats, like that's so love. But did you see any sort of shift in partnerships or outreach like during the pandemic when life was basically shut down and gaming was one of the only things that a lot of people could do?
Yeah, I think a lot of brands. I think so. What I think happened is because you had all these high profile athletes.
Mhm.
And so two things here. So people in our world in esports, yes, our esports events were able to stay on as opposed to like, baseball, basketball stuff canceling. It still took a hit. A lot of the kind of fun part about esports is like it's a spectator component to gaming. So by losing those spectators, even not in person, but like if they're not there, the energy is different. So like having
Yeah.
pro teams play online in an empty arena is very different than having them play in front of a crowd that's screaming, right? So our esports league saw a drop off in viewership. However, you had more people with time on their hands at home, especially high profile individuals are like, what's this streaming thing all about? All right, let me get into streaming. And you had a lot of musicians, athletes, people that picked it up and said like, all right, like this is another form of entertainment I'm going to bring to my community. And that I think accelerated sort of the lens of like streaming, live streaming in like a gaming sense became more mass media sort of like approved. Like you had more brands asking about it, looking into it. You had a lot of people doing more stuff on Twitch and streams and things, sponsored streams, cloud-based tournaments where everyone's streaming in from home and playing from wherever. A lot of tech upgraded. You had a lot of push for being able to run a broadcast from a cloud that was kind of like your
Yeah.
OBS, but like how can we make that bigger and manage multiple channels and stuff? So a lot of that stuff came out of basically everything shutting down, and all that was really left was like this streaming entertainment. I mean, that you could do from your own home. A lot of leagues went remote from a stream. All the casters and analysts streamed from their house, and they got sent all the equipment and coached on like how to use it. And now you see that kind of common practice in sports again. So like you have a lot of people that don't they might cover a sports event and they're doing it from home because it's just cheaper and more effective. And all that really kind of jump started or rocket shipped up thanks to the pandemic. So
Mm-hmm. No, for sure. Which I think is, I mean, we really saw the result of that in this industry, and all the investments into things like streaming,
mhm.
and that sort of content creation, less so maybe coming from like, because the teams playing in empty arenas is, like you said, a lot different than, you know when
Yeah.
they're yeah when there's actually like an audience and like a base, like a fan base there. Um and that kind of I kind of want to switch really quickly into this idea that popped into my brain. um but because you had said that, there's a lot of different components to Misfits Gaming Group, like one of them, being live events that, you are able to help put on, but also there's this idea of UGC playgrounds and user generated content. What's the inspiration for that sort of like those sorts of like spaces?
What's the inspiration for those spaces? Like, why do I think they're so popular, or
Yeah,
what's the
like
inspiration for us to like get involved? Or
both of those. Like,
both?
what's the importance and
I,
why do you guys
yeah,
gravitate
I
there?
I think it all started from you got okay. Let's think of it this way. And this is it's kind of I'll break it down like this. Minecraft to me is one of the original platforms. Minecraft's been a UGC platform since it started. It's just only caught on from like a commercial standpoint not
Yeah,
too long ago.
definitely.
But Minecraft was made as an open source platform. You could
Hmm.
go in and build whatever you wanted as that was, you could either play single player story mode, multiplayer, or just like creative mode and build. People going in and creating things in Minecraft to me was like the start of like, wow, we have all of this fan base creating tons of content for our game. People creating levels, whole maps, just even if it's just not a playable thing, but just to show it off.
Yeah.
It just became this like self proclaiming ecosystem where you kept
Hmm.
reading about or seeing about all these cool things in Minecraft. And then I think you started to see other games and programs kind of put out things where people could make their own stuff, make their own things. And now it's kind of everywhere. I think if you're a game and not thinking about how you can let your own community create in your game, you're kind of missing a huge component. I mean, these people love your game so much and they love it so much they want to spend time and hours into like making something in your game that they can show off to other people, right?
Hmm.
So it takes time to make these things. It's not like a day. It's like weeks and months on end.
Yeah.
So I think anytime you have that sort of passionate of a community, like why wouldn't you tap in and let them create and show
Hmm.
off and be your biggest cheerleaders, right? So
For sure.
I think that's sort of what how the publishers are thinking now. I mean, you have everyone from like CS:GO to other games. I've talked to publishers that are going to be coming out with official UGC platforms within their game. I can't say who, but there's a lot. So
Yeah.
I think it's just going to be a normal component to gaming. There's other platforms that help sort of like fast track things, add-ons and things like Overwolf, where you could download and create mods and games and have people play it and check it out. And but yeah, I think now it's sort of the almost like I don't want to say the next thing because I think we're always going to have gaming, but like to me, it's like it's always going to be adjacent to it. I think if a game like I said comes out, it doesn't have that component, they're going to miss out. So
Yeah, definitely. Do you think that
Mhm.
there's a certain demographic that, like, do you think it's like an older group of gamers that really create these, or is it?
Yeah, I think, look, it takes time, so you have to have, I mean, don't get me wrong, I think there's a lot of older teenagers and that do a great job in building some of these experiences. But if you look at some of these really big experiences that are generating,
Yeah.
thousands and thousands of concurrent players on a map or in an experience and all the intricate builds and updates and live ops and things like that, it takes a grown up. It takes people to have time to do it as their job. So,
Yeah.
but don't get me wrong, I don't think you're going to see a lot of like little kids building too much UGC. Maybe it's a cosmetic or a hat or a thing here and there, but from a full sort of, you know, playable experience, I think you're looking at probably an older audience that builds those things. But that doesn't mean that the players, they understand it. Like, look, gamers are. I always say this: like, gamers are some of your most rabid, even if they're not competitive and they're playing for fun. There's still a competitiveness to it. Like, you're trying to beat the game or be the high score or beat your friends. Like, there's a reason why even in arcade you put three initials when you got the top score in your arcade game, right? So I
Yeah.
think naturally gamers are kind of like, yeah, I want to beat this, or I want to beat it on hard. Like, that's why everyone's like, oh, if you beat something on easy, they're kind of like, it's like, try it on hard, right? So I think there's a natural sort of like love for people getting to see and like new ways to play the games that they love that people create and beat those levels or interact with those other people in that game or map and beat them. So it just gives more unique ways to play the game you love, whether you're older or younger. But I do think that most of the experiences are built by someone who has more time to do it as a job.
Yeah, definitely. And you had said that, UGC, like this sort of content and these playing fields, I'm going to call them, are going to be, hopefully, if games are doing the right thing, then it's going to be adjacent to, what they're already doing and not like the next best thing. You might not have an answer for this, but I feel like maybe, um, do you have, any thoughts on what maybe you think the next best thing is gonna be, or like what's coming for the industry? If you don't, that is
I,
so okay.
I mean, look, you had games that came out that were strictly UGC, like Mario Maker came out. You just literally built maps in Mario all day.
Yeah.
All I know is this: like, there's very big IP that exists now with tons and tons of players that are all, from a publisher standpoint, thinking about how can we put UGC components into our game. Right?
Mm.
The list is very long of people that our development team have talked to about like wanting to say, hey, can you guys build maps in our game? It's based on this platform. Can you look at our toolbox and toolkit? What are we missing? So, like, I think there's going to be a lot in the next year, probably coming out in the next year. A lot, you'll hear a lot of titles that are going to have UGC components to it.
That's awesome. No, that's so cool.
Yeah.
I honestly wasn't even like super exposed to any so that's I mean besides like you had said Minecraft, like I never actually even thought of it that way, and I've been playing Minecraft forever, and the entire thing about Minecraft is being able to just like create my own,
Yeah.
you know, world in there. And so I never thought about it like that, but especially with games like, Fortnite, where people are able to, build their own maps, things like that. That's, really
Yeah.
is the
And think of it like, you have a game and you have a chance to, like, you know, I mean, look at Chain Together, I think came out because of all the vertical levels in Fortnite that were being built, that people were like, let's
mm,
make a crazy level where instead of it's a grand ground map, we can build these crazy scale up, because a big chunk of Fortnite play was, from a building standpoint, you had to be able to build and they build, get our high ground, you kind of build your, whatever you want to call it, your little fort, your thing as you're building up. And then you had people make full on maps that were like, okay, we're just going to do speed runs and stuff of these like vertical maps and play on these really bizarre things. And now you have a full on game
Yeah.
and chain together, where it's like, all right, we're gonna put 4 people together, and you have to literally go as high as you can and get to the finish line. So like that, I don't think that game comes out if you don't have these fans thinking of crazy ways to play Fortnite. Like I don't think the Fortnite devs were like, yeah, let's build a map where it's like totally vertical. When you fall, you're like you have to start from the beginning.
Yeah.
Like you know what I mean? That came from the community being like, we want this. So like, yeah, I think it's you're tapping into that audience of being like, what can they think of? Like we don't, sometimes the best ideas are from your fans. So like these
Mhm.
publishers letting them create and come up with things that might seem bizarre and crazy, actually works. So
Yeah, no, I think listening and sort of seeing what your audience is doing with the games that you've built and what they're creating, and then from there, like I've seen all the videos of Chain Together, and I've been like, that looks like so much fun. And I could never sit here and tell you that had known that came from, for the Fortnite community building these maps that, somehow related to that, and people were like, there could be a game for that. And then, coming up with it, and I'm excited honestly to see more of that sort of those sorts of
mhm.
ideas coming from, things that we've already been seeing. And I think that's going to be exciting.
Yeah, there's stories like that all together. I mean, Lethal Company is an amazing example of someone building a game in Roblox UGC platform, creating a full-fledged game, to then being like, this game's so good, we're gonna make it first and build it in Unreal and sell it on Steam.
Yeah.
So there's another one. There's a lot like that, and I think you're gonna see more and more come out.
No, absolutely. I can't wait. I can't wait. I kind of want to switch gears a tiny bit and ask you a bit more about your place in the industry, and if there's any obstacles that you feel that you have faced in in this esports gaming journey, and how
Mhm.
you overcame came them.
Um, yeah, I think for me, one of the hard parts was just getting validation that our audience was valuable to brands. I
Mm.
started working in this space where brands would tell us, well, we don't want to talk to gamers. And we would have to be like, well, like, I'd have to be like, well, I played games. I'm a gamer and I still go to the movies and grocery shop and bank and
Yeah.
like do all the things that non-gamers do, right? So it was a lot of like education and being like, we're no different. Like we almost were like cast off as this like gamers are these like aliens that we don't know how
Mm.
to talk to, so we're just not going to focus on them. Like we don't have a gaming strategy, and that was for a long time just getting in and educating brands and agencies like, here's what this audience is like. And now to a point, I think if you're a brand, I can't think of any brand or agency that doesn't have a specific like innovation or gaming kind of budget or team or someone that's thinking about those things. So a lot's changed, and I think that was the biggest hurdle back then. I think now it's just like, how do you stand out? There's so many different components that you can do in gaming. There's so many like like the great part about UGC is there's so many things you can build and show off. The bad part about UGC is there's so many things that you can build and show off. Like how do you navigate through all that? There's just
Yeah.
new stuff being made every second, every day. How do you keep up? How do you show brands that like this is what's trending now? And it's just tough still. So I think it's shifted a little bit. And then there's still education. Like now brands are like, okay, we want to get into gaming. What's the right step? And there's so much to do in gaming. It's almost like analysis or paralysis by analysis. Like you're trying to think of, let me do the perfect thing and kind of analyze every little thing, that you're almost like stuck on where do you start. I always tell brands like, just
Yeah.
start and be honest with the audience. Like gamers are very, we appreciate brands working in our field, but they need to be, for lack of that keyword, authentic. I think brands have to, and I always say like brands should lean in if they don't know about gaming. Ask the community, hey, we don't know everything about you guys. What do you want to see? What do you guys want to do? What are things
Mhm.
that we can help bring to the table? Um, I think the gaming community wants brands that truly want to lean in and be cooperative and participate in their space. But if the brands do it from a, they see value in the audience versus trying to take advantage of you. So that's the one thing we try to tell brands is really think about what your goal is, and it doesn't have to be like, you know, you don't have to figure out everything the first time you work within the gaming
Yeah.
community, but you should start and make the goal simple. Maybe it's, hey, I want people to sign up to get a free sample for my new product.
Mhm.
And there's lots of ways you can do that and see what works. It doesn't have to be like, hey, I want to be the number one selling category in the gaming world the first time you ever talk to gamers, right? So
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
yeah, so we try to just baby step it and you'll get there. But if you're looking at gaming from like a transactional standpoint, it's tough, especially if you're a new product. But if you're looking at if the brand's looking at it from like, I truly want to be a part of this community, I think it's going to pay dividends down the road, considering how loyal and boisterous gamers are. So
Yeah, I think, a lot of the times there is that big reach and that big ask, especially if you're stepping into a space that you may not be as familiar with. And so that when it's broken down into like the baby steps, it's a lot easier to sort of make an impact on the space, in both regards to the gaming community and to your brand as well, when you do kind of simplify it and you do take a
mm,
step back and really think about like what that minimal like viable product is for your company,
mm,
what you're trying to create. um and then I that kind of made me think a little bit about just where I think esports and gaming is right now, especially with like esports organizations, because you had talked earlier about how Misfits made this transition. uh and and I want to know, how you feel about the importance of like diversifying revenue streams and, tapping into different markets, whether that's from, your like specifically your company or what you think like in general for, maybe esports orgs at this time in the industry.
yeah, I think you need to have multiple revenue streams. You need a diverse portfolio. I think you need to be able to offer, whether if you're going to go very heavy into esports, that's fine. But I think you have to look at different games. Not every game wants to be around, or not every brand wants to be around shooters. You have to look at
Mm,
what are the types of audiences, what are the age groups. Like all these games have different age ranges,
yeah.
right? You have games that skew much older than others. So like when brands come to you with an opportunity, if you only have that one thing, you're going to miss out on being able to put a proposal together for reaching a specific audience versus whether if it's having multiple teams or different types of talent, different types of creators. I think that's important. I think it's okay to have those different things as long as everyone buys into your core pillars. And like for us, it's like playful. If you've ever looked at Misfits content over the years, we're not as serious. We like to have fun and more for the most part, pretty family friendly sort of atmosphere
Yeah.
compared to a lot of other esports orgs. That's always been us. So like whether we're bringing in a creator or doing an event, it'll always kind of fit somewhere in there. So I don't think
Hmm.
you need to necessarily like get away from your core sort of competencies and what you do best. But you do need to have some variation. You need to have different flavors because not every brand, not every people spending their money want to get the same thing. So um, yeah, and I think it's important to look at different ways, whether that's looking into tapping into more digital media for call it quantifiable assets where you can like sell on impressions,
Hmm.
whether you're looking at things that are more partnerships, or maybe it's an event where there's tickets or booth space that brands can buy, like whatever it might be. I think you have to always look back and say, okay, what are different ways that we can really tap into our assets and create more
Yeah.
revenue streams from them. So I think it's really important. I think for us, we're always, I mean, we've pivoted several times in the last 8 years of our existence now. And I think I don't think we won't probably change pivoting that much just because gaming changes so much all the time. So,
Yeah, for sure. I wanted to go back to something that you actually had said. First, I think that idea of like staying true to your like pillars and what the company is like built off of and really what you value, and still being able to you know bring in different revenue from different areas, but still sort of sticking to those same core values. I think is really important. And you had said something about it was something about the shooter games. Have you ever experienced working with like a brand or a company where they're asking for something and you deliver that said something, but has there ever been like an instance where they're like, "Oh no, we can't do shooter games," or like, "Oh no, we can't do like zombies or something," or it's like, has there ever been a situation where, yeah?
So many. Like, there's a couple funny stories. One is a program we were running for a brand, a big brand, and they wanted to tap into a certain audience. And the Fortnite audience was perfect. It was that tween teen sort of audience, like at the time when it was big. And if you show them the numbers, like, look, it's very hard to get data skewing for kids under 13, but like
Mhm.
you talk to anyone's younger cousin, niece, nephew, kid, they're like, yeah, they're playing Fortnite, right?
Yeah,
This
for
was
sure.
back when Fortnite World Cup was going on. All the craze when you have all these influencers like literally streaming playing Fortnite, right? So,
Yeah.
and like after a couple months in the program, they were like, wait a second, there's guns in Fortnite? And we're like, well, yeah, I mean, it's a game you eliminate
Opponent. Yeah.
your opponent in the game, and you're trying to be the last one standing, your last team standing, and that's how the game is played. And then they were like, well, can we remove the guns? And we're like, no, it's not. I mean, it's funny thing like that happened then, but now you can create modes in Fortnite
Yeah.
Fortnite creative and where there's parkour race, obstacle course, you know, escape room type stuff where there are no weapons. But like then it was like, well, no, like that's how the game's played.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've had brands like not really like thinking they knew, and then we're kind of confused, and we're like, look, and then of course the brands like, we didn't know that, but like we understand. Okay, we're gonna leave it. And it was like, but they knew all their sons, daughters, friends, nieces, nephews were all playing it anyway. So it's like, all right, if you really want to talk to a 12 to 15-year-old back then in 2019 or 20, it was like you need to be around Fortnite. So like, I think they kind of like we got it, and we're like, okay, we're okay with that. They kind of talked themselves into like, all right, we're all right with the guns because it's Fortnite. It's like a hologram. There's no blood. They kind of in their heads justified it, right?
Yeah.
And then we've had some funny stories where we had games where there was a brand that wanted to be in a certain kind of level, the way the game was played, and then they didn't even know this. Like in their own legal from an automotive company, they weren't allowed to run over zombies because zombies were once human, and legally they can't show their brand running over a human. And I'm like, okay, but it's in a game and they're zombies. Like they're not. This isn't a
That's
real person.
crazy.
So just stuff like that
Wow.
comes up where like brands will say, hey, this is what we want, and then kind of like, whoa, like wait a second, we didn't realize all these things. So I think that's part of having someone or a team or whether it's Misfits or whoever else that really gets the audience and space to really help brands walk them through figuring out where to be because just so many, you never realize what sort of stipulations brands have on them and how to make it work. And sometimes brands can talk themselves into it, like that one brand, and sometimes brands can, and they're like, "Hey, we can't do it." So it is what
Yeah.
it is. But
No, definitely for sure. I mean, the zombie thing, that's crazy. That's so funny.
yeah, it's
But
like, wait, what do you mean they're not? I'm like, they're not real. But in their eyes, they can't show that even
yeah.
from a video game standpoint, they can't have
Yeah.
their they can't do that.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like I have definitely personally run into certain like times where there's been games that we're not allowed to have been streamed if they're too violent or something like that. And sort of having to figure out those workarounds and then figuring out from there what we can do and what we're, and that
Mhm.
sorts of things. And it's like those, restrictions, can also open up opportunity to do something else and to do something, new that you didn't even think about. So there's,
Mhm.
opportunity there. I want to ask you again slightly about, your position, working with partnerships. Do you feel that there's a strength or a personality trait that someone would need to be successful in your job or something that you've like a skill that you've found that has really been huge for you when when working uh, with Misfits and in partnerships.
Yeah, I think a couple things. Be a good listener. So like an active listener. Don't just like listen for the sake of like saying really truly hear what they have to say about their problems, how they're trying to reach people, what they've done in
Hmm.
the past. Like, there's basic questions you can always ask. Like I always like to ask people like, what is a successful partnership with us or in this campaign that you're looking for? Like, what does that look like to them? Like,
Yeah.
you tell me what makes you say, wow, we did a great job. So like, I want them to verbalize and explain that. And then you can kind of see them think through like, what are the real things they have to accomplish. So I like asking that. I like listening about that. I think also knowing your product real well. So the more you know your product, the more you can pivot and kind of help fit it into where they need it to. Or maybe it's not the right fit, and you kind of say, okay, well, not don't do that, but we can do this. I think so. Knowing your product, in and out is really important. Maybe obviously, look, there's always things changing in gaming and new stuff, but trying to be on top of it is really important. So yeah, I think those are like really the most. Don't get discouraged. If you're in sales or anything we were asking for partnerships or money, you're going to get a lot of no's.
Mm.
No's are I this my first ever sales job in advertising. My old boss told me something that still sticks with me today, and this was I don't know how many years ago now, 20 plus years ago, almost 20 years ago maybe, and it was you know, the sales process really doesn't start until someone tells you no. So like if everyone just said yes, it would be pretty easy and
Yeah.
you wouldn't have to explain things and follow up and okay, when's a better time? And you always think of like a no isn't a no, it's a not right now, or we don't have the right fit, or
Hmm.
how can we be better? It's not like no, we don't want to work with you. It's this doesn't work right now. So I always took that to heart. Like you can't take it personal. No's are going to happen. It doesn't mean they don't like you or don't want to work with you. It's you're not the right fit at the right time. And I
Yes.
think a lot of gaming, a lot of advertising and gaming is a lot of that. What's the right fit at the right time? And a lot of this stuff's like really connected. Like you're not working with a brand in a vacuum. They have their marketing beats, they have their budgets and timing when they spend money, they have their core pillars that they're trying to hit. So everything has to line up and align for it to make sense. Sometimes you're a little late, they just spent their money. Sometimes you're a little early and they haven't started planning yet. So like a lot of stuff has to work out for everything to come together. And you can't take it personal if they don't want to do it. There's
Yeah.
always you always can follow up with them another time. So I think those things: listen, really know your product, and don't take things personal.
Yeah, absolutely. I really love what you said at the end about not taking things personal or understanding that no doesn't necessarily mean like no, we don't want to work with you because we just like don't want to work with you for personal like it like and cuz I have a come from a theater background before I really got into this industry, and that idea that like it's not that they're saying no because they don't like you or anything. Like you just might not be the right fit for this show at this time. But like maybe if they're casting something else, they'll think of you and be like, yes, you should come out. You know what I'm saying? So like there's other opportunity there.
Yeah, I tend to think like if you provide value and educate them, it might not be the right fit then, but hopefully when there is another opportunity, they think of like, I really liked what, Friday said or did. So when that opportunity pops back up, they think of you, right? And they give you another chance or an opportunity to really propose something or put something in front of them. Yeah, you never know. I always say like there's programs you're going to think you're going to get and then you won't. And then there's programs you think you won't get and you will.
That you
And there's
will.
stuff that's going to pop up out of nowhere. And so you just have to kind of keep trucking along. You can't get down. You have to keep, you know, just working through it. And if you, I think, stay persistent and stay positive and really try to bring value, I think eventually stuff will work out.
Absolutely. I love that. I value that, and as you say it, I'm like, yes, I'm listening to this and I'm feeling it. And I know that, others will, and that's always, something good for them to hear. I do want to go into our little hot seat, where I ask you some
Okay.
crazy questions. They're
All
not that
right.
crazy.
Let me get, okay, we're going to get serious
The
all right.
backwards
We'll
hat.
get,
Okay. Okay. So
we'll get
first one.
serious for it.
Well, we have to. So, okay. This is controversial. So I literally just said wasn't going to be a crazy question. I just said it's going to be controversial. So Does pineapple belong on pizza?
I think me personally,
Yeah,
I'm not a big fan of pineapple on pizza.
heard.
Uh, I'm also like I also just love to eat and eat food. So like if the only slice of pizza has pineapple on it, I'm probably gonna eat it. But if
Yes,
I had to if I had to order a pizza and like choose what I wanted, pineapple would not be on
heard. Okay, I'm totally there with you. Like if there was a piece of, like no matter what the piece of pizza is, if I'm hungry and there's a piece of pizza there that has something on, I'm eating it. So I totally get it. Is there a topping you do like on your pizza though?
I like spicy, so like
Ooh, okay.
jalapenos, banana peppers,
Oh,
like
love.
spicy pepperoni, spicy sausage. So I'm a give me all the red pepper flakes and everything. So
Love.
like yeah, I'm a big spicy fan. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
If you were stranded on a deserted island and you can only
Okay.
bring three things, what are you bringing?
Only three things. Do I have like a solar powered battery charger for my phone and can I get service there or no?
I mean, yeah, if you bring that, then yes.
I guess if I can get service to be on my phone, I mean, I would bring my phone and a solar powered battery pack to charge it.
There we
That's
go.
two things,
Yeah.
I guess. The last thing, man, I don't know. I mean, no. I mean, do I have like fresh water on the island? Like, am I able to
I
like,
would
will I
I would
die?
I like to think that there would be fresh water on the
Okay, so
island.
there's a water source. Yeah, I guess from like a keeping me busy standpoint, um, if I'm there with other people, maybe like a fun board game, but
Ooh,
otherwise,
I
I
love
don't
that.
know. If I'm by myself, I don't know. Maybe like if I could bring more than, okay, let me think about this. I'd definitely bring like a pad of paper, like a big stack of like sketch pad.
Ooh, yeah.
But then I'd have to bring like a pencil or something. That would be an extra thing. I don't know. That's a tough one. I don't know.
I liked the board game direction. I know I've
I
never
guess
I
if there's like a bunch, if there's like me and several
if
people,
there's
I'd bring a
like a
board
whole
game.
group, yeah, definitely. Do you have a go-to board
But yeah,
game?
I don't know if that's allowed in the rules or whatever. So
Is there a board
all right,
game
I
that
don't
you
know.
would
I guess I can break through. I'll bring if I could bring four things.
four
I'd bring a
things?
pencil, a sketch pad, a solar power charger, and my phone. This
Okay.
would be my
Heard.
things.
Those are good. And then on the note of the board game, which board game would you bring if you could bring a board
Oh
game?
man, I don't know. I love like board games that require like there's some fun weird games. So like have you ever played Domo? Like I don't know if you ever heard of this
No.
game. So Domo's from Japan. It's this ridiculous looking character who looks just like a brown fuzzy block. And he's always just put in these ridiculous scenarios with other funny furry animals.
Oh, I
And
love
it's like
that.
a photograph, and you basically get three words, and you have to like describe the scene using at least one of the words. The more
Okay.
words you use in it, the more points you get. And you have like a judge every round, so it just rotates who's the picker. And the judge doesn't know like who wrote what for the scene, so they just
Got
pick like,
it.
oh, this is the funniest one. Who wrote it? Oh, I did. That's so you get the points. There's that. There's a game like that called Dixit that can be played lots of different ways. It's also like a funny, weird picture, and there you can be given one word to describe it, and then you have to kind of guess who played that picture for the word. And so I like those games. I also love Clue. I don't know why. I always loved
I
Clue growing
love
up. But
Clue.
yeah, I love
So fun.
Clue. Um, so I like those types of games as I've gotten older. There's a really fun game that if you really want to play it, it requires at least three people, but it's called Deep Sea Adventure. It's so good. It's
Okay.
you get a submarine, and the submarine only has X amount of spaces for air, and you have to move the dial through the submarine that basically you use up your air,
Oh, that's cool.
and you have to move it every turn. But then you also decide to swim down as one of the scuba divers collecting treasure. And if you go down, you can go down as many spaces as you roll your dice. But when you go up, if when you have to go back because you're going to run out of air, you the amount of like treasure you find has a number value, and that's how many spaces you subtract because it's weighing you down to go back up to the surface.
Whoa.
So if you roll a 5, but you have like a treasure that's 3, you only get to move 2 spaces up. So like you kind of have to think, and then you can also sabotage everyone else by just using up all the air because you use up more air as the more treasure you have because it's
Yeah.
harder to swim back up. So anyways, it's a great game. I highly recommend it to anyone. Deep sea adventure. It's awesome. It's in a little blue box. There's not a lot of pieces to it. It's super fun and easy, but it's a great game with friends. So
I love that. I've never heard of it, but like that's just something that's definitely right up my alley. Ugh.
yeah,
I love this podcast. Not only are we like always talking, we're talking like industry, but we're also talking fun new board games that I've never heard of. Like this
yeah.
is the recommendations are spot on. And then this one does have to do with gaming and esports a bit. If you
Okay.
could find a way to turn any like video game into an esport specifically, what would it be and why?
I don't know. I joked. Someone wrote this the other day. I think it was like responding to the Mountain Dew Twitter. It was like, "What's the next big esport?" And I was like, "I just think the game's so fun and bizarre. Goat Simulator to me is hilarious. So
That would
like,
be so good.
if you could turn Goat Simulator 3 into an esport, I'd totally watch that. But I don't know. I don't know. Like, there's some old games that were really good that are like super hard. So like, I don't know if I'd call it an esport, but just watching people try to beat it to me would be like just. And they're like old games where like you didn't have like you know balancing mechanics in the game, and you didn't have
Yeah.
all these things to help your control. I mean, you used like an A and a B button and a D pad, and like good luck trying to navigate around. So it was
Yeah.
like hard to do. I don't know. There's a lot of good games. But I don't know. I don't know if I could. Man, that's a tough one. If I could turn any game into an esport. I don't know. I don't know. You'd have to get back to me on that. I don't know.
Valid. I mean, I think the Goat Simulator 3 was a really good
That's just a
that kicked
me.
it off.
Yeah, I know the guy runs socials there, so we were just like, he was like, I was like, dude, that'd be just a bizarre situation to like turn on if you were like on like if you had like YouTube or Twitch on your
Yeah, to
TV and you're
see
like, what
that.
is this?
Yeah, to
Like,
see
what
that
is
being
this? What's going on here? Yeah.
played would be so funny. Um,
Or like another one could be like Plants vs Zombies. I feel like that like missed
ooh.
its time. Like that could have been a good one.
Yeah, that definitely I feel it, yeah. Right there with you on that. That could have been a good one
So
if they really capitalized off that in
I don't
time.
know.
No, but I think it's a hard question. It's a tough one.
Yeah.
And so then
No,
moving on to the next one, I have to ask if you're allergic to fruit.
fruit? No.
Okay, so then if you were a fruit, what fruit would you be and why?
Hmm. For a fruit, what fruit would I be? I don't know. Like, uh, I have no idea why, but I'd be an orange, I guess. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I'm, I grew up in a state where oranges come from in Florida, and
Love.
I like oranges. They smell
Why?
great when you peel them.
True. We love
Yeah,
oranges here.
they're good for you. They have lots of vitamin C.
Absolutely.
I don't know.
Okay.
They have our own little wrapper packaging, kind of keeps them safe.
True.
But yeah, I don't know why. I don't know if this is the right approach, but yeah, orange, I guess.
There is no right. It's so up. It's really whatever your calling is, and so I will absolutely take orange. And then I want to ask. This is almost two questions, but it can be the same question. What your favorite video game is at the moment, and
Hmm.
then what your favorite esport is. It can be the same thing.
Okay, what's my favorite video game right now? Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't play lots of games anymore right now. I have little kids and a
Okay.
wife and stuff to do around the house. Usually, my wife always says if you have time to game, there's definitely other stuff that needs to get done. So,
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if there's a game that like I like was like, oh, I gotta play this. I don't know. Let me think on the game because there really isn't one that's like kind of like that. I've been like, oh, I need to play it.
Yeah.
But I think from an esports standpoint, it's really hard. Like the scenario of a SND type map or game where you're on round 11 and it's 5v5 and it comes down to the last one or two people and like the winner take all sort of that one moment, it's really hard to beat from like an anxiety inducing sweating like what's going to happen, like I need to watch and I can't look away moment. And to me that's what kind of a spectator opportunity is all about. Like can
Hmm.
you be in a scenario where you can get those moments from watching whether it's a sport or an esport. So to me like a game that has that element to me is just hard to beat. So like a CS:GO or Call of Duty where you have that sort of like really winner take all opportunity where everything's on the line.
Yeah.
Just it's hard to beat from an excitement standpoint.
No, absolutely. As a spectator of certain esports, like those are the moments that I live for watching, especially like at events and stuff like that. Like seeing that
Mhm.
play out is mm,
Yeah, and it's almost
whoa,
like when you're watching it, you can tell everyone's so quiet and watching, and then when it happens, like just sheer eruption from everyone, like
explosion. Yeah.
yeah, it's just like it's hard to beat that opportunity from a spectator standpoint. And I think the games that offer that are to me are just like it's hard to beat those. So
No, absolutely. Well, thank you for letting me ask my hot seat questions. I know they were
for
so
sure.
so crazy and out there, and I just want to thank you so much again for taking the time to chat and go through your experiences and talk a little bit more about Misfits Gaming Group. I think what you're doing is amazing, and I think so important, especially to all types of people, in the world, whether they're, certain companies or gamers or kids or, no matter what. I see what you're doing and I value it so much. So I'm so glad that you were able to to be here and chat a little bit. All of Justin's social media will be in the link below, as well as all the Cope socials. So make sure to check us out as there's more exciting content to come. So thank you so much again, and we'll see you in the next episode.